What was it that made you want to write Silk?
So I used to be a barrister. I spent 8 or 9 years at the bar, and there's an enormous number of really great stories to tell, I think. And my own experience of being a barrister gave me that sort of head start in writing about it. And I think there's a lot of stuff that people don't know about. I think there's a lot of not just the sort of texture, but big stuff that people don't really know about the criminal justice system, and about how barristers work, about clerks' rooms, about how the relationship between solicitors and barristers, how stressful it is, how difficult it is, how pressured it all is. And I think all of those things make for quite natural drama, actually, luckily. And because I'm lucky enough to know a bit about it, those two things together made me think it'd be a good idea. And I really wanted to write a really big part for a woman. So having a BBC One 9 o'clock series with a woman as the main character, I think is reasonably unusual. And so I'm lucky to have Maxine and all that. And I thought, and actually, having that character played by Maxine, who's not this sort of archetypal, stereotyped barrister that you think of, it's fantastic. It just gives you a little. She's from up north. She's a woman. Those two things are still unusual, unbelievably, in lawland in London. It just gives it a little frisson and a little kind of edge that it might not have if there are other actors I can think of playing the part.
Are any of the characters based on you?
Well, I do remember being a pupil barrister, and Tom Hughes' character Nick, some of the way you feel, and you'll see in later episodes when he gets dropped into the deep end and has to appear in court for the first time. You're untrained, you don't know what you're doing, it's scary as hell, and you've got to do it. And that's how you learn. And, I will always remember that. And so some of his character and the way he feels when he goes into court for the first time and the second time and the third time, it comes from my own experience. None of the cases, obviously, are direct things from my own experience, because that would be quite wrong. But I think having done it, having been a barrister, you get lots of choices as a writer because you know the landscape, you know the territory, and it means it's just easier. You have more options when you're writing, which is a nice thing to have.
There's a lot of competition in the show, so Martha and Clive are competing against each other, and then Nick and Neve. Did you always know who would win those battles, if there is a winner?
No, really not from the beginning. And I think on the whole, that idea about planning through to the end and knowing what the end is, I don't actually agree with that as a kind of writing principle. I find that I discover so much by the act of writing that it would be kind of wrong to kind of know at the beginning what's happening at the end. So all those questions are, for me, up for grabs through, until quite near the end. And I think for me personally, that's best. I don't know whether it comes across. Maybe it does as sort of, maybe you get it as an audience. Maybe it feels that you don't know if the writer doesn't know either. Do you know what I mean? Well, it sounds like an unhappy thing, but I think it might be a good thing.
And with the cases, the audience might not necessarily feel comfortable with the verdicts all the time. Was it important for you to have moral ambiguity in the show?
Really important, really important. I'm not always against it, but I feel with a show like this, it's really important not to wrap everything up, with care and attention all of the time. I think life isn't like that. I'm trying, I suppose, to replicate what life is like at the bar. And, if you're going to be truthful to that idea, then it's really important that, ambiguity is there. From my own experience of being at the bar, I'd say probably 3/4 of the people I represented at trial who are saying they're not guilty, I would say probably were guilty. Certainly nothing like 3/4 of them are convicted, so you could say that's the wrong result. Except, I don't think it was, but actually, so it's important to show ambiguity and ambivalence if you're going to be truthful.
Are you worried about what real barristers working at the moment will think of the show?
Do you know what I think about that? I think it's a funny thing. I think, no, I'm not really. I think, my characters in this, they have about 3 Perry Mason moments every week, and I think, I should be so lucky. If you were a real barrister and you had that, you should be very, very grateful. I think it's just healthy, really, to know more about a profession. It's just better if we, as members of the public, understand more about what it's like. I always think about doctors and the medical profession and how probably some years ago, on the whole, you trusted all of them always, and now you probably ask more questions and think about which one you want and why. And I think it's better to have that, better to know more than know less. And I think we could do with knowing a bit more about the way it works, and hopefully, we're doing some of that.